Hey everybody, the Freelancer back again, continuing Sonic the Hedgehog week, and here we are, June 23rd. 20 years ago today, the world was introduced to Sonic the Hedgehog, and it's been a heck of a ride ever since. This game did, wonders for me. As I stated in the gameplay footage, I started with an Atari, and because my parents couldn't afford it, ended up skipping the Nintendo and the Sega Master System, and the first new console I got was a Sega, and it came with this. This game just totally rocked my world. I wasn't prepped for anything that was presented in here, and when I saw it, I thought I was seeing just a whole new world. I didn't think anything like it could exist. And to this day, easily ranks in my top 5 favorite games of all time. I'm never going to stop loving this game. And honestly, there's a lot of people that couldn't really blame me. But be that as it may, I think it goes best just to show you and tell you about it. So, here it is, Sonic the Hedgehog. I am never going to get tired of that sound so long as I live. Because that sound, that's childhood. And so is the theme song for this. There's not much really that I could actually say about Sonic the Hedgehog that hasn't been said a million times over. It's been listed as one of the greatest games ever made on numerous lists throughout its, 20-year history now. And just like I've said with all the others, but I think it's even more true with this one than any other, with very good reason. I mean, this game kind of did for Sega, obviously on a much smaller level, what Nintendo and their Super Mario Brothers franchise did for the gaming industry as a whole. Mario saved gaming, saved Nintendo, or really brought Nintendo to the forefront. I can't even say it saved them. And Sonic did the same. It brought Sega to the forefront of people's minds. They had the Master System, and it had done, fairly well, from what I understand, in Japan and Europe, but it never really caught on here in the States. Which, for the life of me, part of me still doesn't fully understand, just because if you compare the Sega Master System to the Nintendo Entertainment System, it was just a superior system all the way around. But if I had to venture my guesses, I don't know as much about it as I do about other Sega systems. It was probably exceedingly difficult to program for in comparison to the original Nintendo. So then along came the Genesis in 1989, and the first games they had for it were Altered Beast and Shinobi and things like that. Good games, but nothing to really capture anybody. So Sega made the decision to come up with a mascot character. They held a contest and ended up with a rough sketch drawing of what would ultimately become Sonic the Hedgehog. Though they had initially called him Mr. Needlemouse, I'm really glad they changed the name. And there was a lot of back and forth in his original design as far as what they wanted him to look like and what Sega of America wanted him to look like. Ultimately, they went with Sega's of America's ideas, and, well, you pretty much know the rest. I mean, the character jumped into the forefront of gaming, both in America and in the East. And a franchise was born that was actually capable of taking on the powerhouse of Mario and Nintendo. Now, me personally, as most people know, and some may not, I started with an Atari 2600. And then that was it for me for the longest time. My parents weren't able to afford either an NES or a Master System, so I had no exposure to the 8-bit era whatsoever. And then Christmas, they bought me a Genesis, and by that point they were packing in Sonic the Hedgehog with the system. So I got it, you know, when a lot of kids did, when the popularity was there. And I couldn't, still to this day, couldn't be happier that they ended up buying it for me. Later on, they did end up getting a Super Nintendo, though I was really hesitant to play it at first, if anybody remembers the big console war from back then. And remembers how heated it all was. So I was really, you know, reluctant to pick up the Super Nintendo controllers at first, just because I thought to myself, you know, I've got Sega, I've got Sonic, and Sonic 2, you know, all these other fantastic games. You know, what could a Super Nintendo possibly offer me? Well, needless to say, I couldn't have been more wrong, and I'll freely admit to that. And I ended up having a lot of fun with the Super Nintendo as well. But I've always been drawn back to Sonic the Hedgehog and the Sega. And I've been a loyal fan for years. Maybe not the most die-hard fan, you know, because I don't believe in that whole rabid, blind fanboyism. Never have, even when I was young. But this game, I mean, it represents my childhood. I was about 7 years old when this game came out, and it was one of the first forays into real solid modern gaming. I mean, I was shocked. There were 3 buttons on the front of the controller and a directional pad that moved 8 different ways. There wasn't a stick, and there wasn't just one button. And then I was handed this blue Speedy Hedgehog, and he had these gorgeous levels to run through, and this fantastic music playing. I mean, this zone alone, I can't hardly talk, I'm just in a nostalgic goop right now. I just love the music for this zone. I love the music in the Starlight Zone, which I'll get to momentarily here. I just loved all the music. I loved the way Sonic acted, the way he looked, the fact that he had this attitude towards the player. If you stopped moving, he'd just stand there and look at you like, are we gonna get going anytime soon? You know, you didn't have that with Nintendo properties, even into the Super Nintendo days. So, you know, not only did I have a completely new experience in front of me and a new type of character and a new type of game design, but then I had a completely different attitude towards the player themselves as represented by the company that made it in the first place. So, then you had moments like that, where you would just move at an incredible rate to the point that you were actually moving beyond the camera. And that was one of the great things about Sonic. You had a lot of different ways that you could go about playing it. You could either be slow and methodical and, you know, try and explore all these levels, which I did, and I still think, 20 years later, I don't think I've uncovered everything that I could have, just because you do wind up finding a certain pattern that you're comfortable with when playing any type of game, not just Sonic here. And I'm sorry for the choppy footage. I tried to get the best I could out of it, but it just wasn't working with me like I was hoping. So, afraid you'll have to bear with that. Though by now, I'm sure anybody who's been watching is used to it. Now here's Starlight Zone Act 2. This is where I tried to show off the other way to play it. Instead of exploring around and looking at the zones, trying to get through it as fast as is physically possible. And I actually could have done better with this. I did try and stop and grab up a bunch of rings and things, well, except for right there. Just because it's force of habit. I'm more the completionist type, so I'm always trying to get the most of everything that I possibly can. And there are people who can run through this zone and this whole game much faster than I can. I mean, I've watched speed runs where people have completed this in, 25 minutes or less on some of them, and I'm always shocked to see people doing that. But that's just how familiar they are with the game. And see, there I was able to do it in 56 seconds. Again, I probably could have easily shaved 20 seconds off of that, no problem. Marble Zone, on the other hand, what I did here was try to show that you can't always move exceedingly fast in Sonic, and I also did this to kind of highlight a point that I've been trying to rebut for years now. This thought that people have that Sonic always has to be moving fast. And in reality, when Sonic first started, it was a very precision-based platformer, just like its Nintendo counterpart. So you couldn't just blindly run into things and, hope to get through the level unscathed. You actually did sometimes have to plot and plan, and while you were still moving along rather quickly, you would have these segments where you'd be halted, or portions where you had to stop and really think about, okay, what's the next move I'm gonna make? And I love that about Sonic, that you had those sort of options. I mean, there have been a lot of times when I've played Mario games, and don't get me wrong, don't misunderstand me, I like Mario games a lot. But it always feels like there's basically a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things, and that's about the extent of it. Sonic, I always felt like I had more options, though that may just be a perceived notion and may hold no real ground whatsoever. Here's a portion I'll always remember. It stuck with me even when I was a kid. When I go to jump over this first set of blocks here, you notice when Sonic jumps, he doesn't go into a ball like normal. There's some little glitch that always made him just jump while he was kind of running. Very slowly, mind you. I don't know why, but that just kind of stuck with me, and I've never forgotten about it. Just like I've never forgotten the level select code. That one's burned and etched into my brain. Funny part about it being that it was etched in there before I even used it. I learned it from just a random kid I met one day when I was still a kid, and they had Sonic set up at a store or something. And the kid asked me did I know the level code for it, and I said, level code? I had no idea such a thing existed. He told it to me. Up, down, left, right, the A button and the start button at the same time. You have to put them in rather quickly at the title screen, and then it brings up the level selection area. And like I say, it just burned in, and I've never ever forgotten it, despite the fact that I try as desperately as possible to use it as little as possible. And it's not that I'm not one of those sticklers that has some major thing against cheat codes. I figure the designers put them in there for a reason. But I only, believe in using them when you're just playing around. I mean, if you're going into a game and are really serious about playing and beating a level and, trying your best, well then absolutely you're not supposed to use them. But things like the Konami code, which is so infamous and was a big help for a lot of people when they played games like Contra, that code is put in there. Give it a try if you want to. Just know that whatever you do while that code is in, it doesn't count for anything. And again, that whole idea and that whole belief system dates back to Sonic the Hedgehog. Because, of course, in old Atari games, you didn't have codes or anything. It was just, you started from the beginning, tried to get the high score, and watched as the same board that you always played repeated itself and the enemies got faster. Whereas here, you know, you had a beginning, a middle, and an end. There were special stages and bonuses, and actually 2 different endings, which was a total shocker. Just none of this was I prepared for back in 1991 when I got to play this for the first time. And like I say, 20 years later, it still amazes me just to look at, you know, how vibrant and bright and colorful everything is without being garish or, you know, just way too much to handle. See, there's an example of, you know, try not to hurry too much because you might get smashed by spikes. If I hadn't had that shield, I would have been in. Now, finding a copy of Sonic is like finding a blade of grass when you walk outside. It's almost impossible not to find it. You can get a Genesis and find the game. You can buy them on eBay at $5 a piece for the cartridge if you want. You can get the Sonic's Mega Collection, which I know I keep pulling out on you guys, but I'm telling you, this thing is a great way to go about finding the games. You can play them on the Virtual Console and the Xbox and the PlayStation 3 and on the PC. Numerous other compilations, the Sega Genesis Collection, Sonic's Ultimate Collection. The game's everywhere. It's pretty much saturated into the market. I'd say for every 1 re-release of the original Super Mario Bros. Game, there have been at least 3 re-releases of the original Sonic the Hedgehog game. Though it is worth noting, there is one version of it I will warn you about. It's caught a lot of flack, and it deserves to, and that's the version of it that they put out for the 15th anniversary on the Game Boy Advance. I'm not sure how the story goes exactly, but long and short of it, Sega ended up, instead of just porting the original game, they took the whole game and just remade it and put it on the Game Boy Advance. But from everything I've heard, I haven't played it because of all the footage I've seen. It's glitchy, it's buggy, it's poorly made, poorly implemented, and poorly put together. And that really was something that the 15th anniversary was marred by. You had that thing, you had the as known Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, released on the 360 and PS3, which has caught flack all over. And then you had games like Shadow the Hedgehog, which is around here somewhere. And that's a game that's also caught tons and tons of flack. That whole 15th anniversary was just a mess. But it looks to me like Sonic's finally starting to get back on track. Sonic Colors was great, the DS version. A lot of people, you know, it was kind of a mixed bag, but a lot of people were still happy with Sonic the Hedgehog Episode 4. And now we've got Sonic Generations coming up. And honestly, I'll say this much for Generations. Even if it's not as great as it looks like it's going to be, at least I'm going to give Sega the A for effort. At least they're putting some effort into celebrating Sonic's 20th anniversary. I mean, Nintendo gave us a port of a 13-year-old Super Nintendo game, stuck it on a disc, and expected us to pay $30 for it. Not that it isn't worth owning, and I'll do a video about it at some point, but it felt like they could have done better. For the 25th anniversary of a video game carriage, they could have done better. So the fact that, you know, Sega's going to these lengths and creating a whole new game just to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog, if nothing else, I gotta give them those kind of props. So this has been the Freelancer, and since it's only Thursday, there's still one more video to go. But if you want to stop here, you can. So I hope you're enjoying Sonic the Hedgehog week, and I'll see you again. Later.